It's Monday the 27th of January in the Vendée Globe, the skipper's 78th day at sea, and both Benjamin Dutreux and Clarisse Crémer have now finished, and we give you an update from them. They have not been able to enter Les Sables. The conditions have been so rough with this storm that's come across the North Atlantic that as soon as they've gone over the storm finish, they've had to head to La Rochelle for shelter. They will go to Les Sables once conditions are a bit better. After we hear updates from them, we get an update from Kojiro Shiraishi, who is around the equator at the moment, and also Violette Dorange, who last night cooked a delicious pasta and red pesto supper. We then take a look at the tracker, the leaderboard, PredictWind routing options for Romain Attanasio, who is quite far west and leading a group that way, and it looks like they're going to go to the west of the Azores as they head towards the finish line. And then we have an update where Andi Robertson talks to Sam Goodchild after he's now finished the race.
Benjamin Dutreux faced a severe storm in Les Sables with breaking waves at the channel entrance, preventing boats from entering. So the skipper of Guyot Environment Water Family had to cross the storm finish line offshore, securing a top 10 spot, just like he did in the last Vendée Globe. He then took his IMOCA to shelter in La Rochelle.
What I feel a lot of emotion. That's not easy to translate all of my emotion in English, but I have tried to learn that during the ocean race, but I don't remember all what I learned now because a lot of emotion submerged me. But it's a crazy time and sharing adventure with a team, with some sponsors, with public from La Rochelle and from everywhere. That's crazy. That makes a new adventure, and that just make a man like me happy to be here and with my boat. And I just want to share now all the stories of my Vendée Globe with everybody, because I haven't say everything, so I just want now to speak about all the adventure.
This morning at 03:36 hours UTC, Clarisse Crémer, the skipper of L'Occitane en Provence, crossed the finish line using the storm finish line in exactly the same way as Benjamin Dutreux, and is heading towards La Rochelle for shelter. Both her and Dutreux will be heading to Les Sables as soon as the storm allows.
Eh, 26日です。やっと風が吹いてきました。これでもね吹いたんですよ。いや、昨日の夜は大変でした。凪から20ノットまで。だからもうなんていうかな、最高27ノットで走ったり、速度がゼロになったり、もうヨーヨーみたいな航海でしたね。で、今日の朝は全く風がなかったです。写真ね、ご覧いただければいいと思う。本当にベタなぎで全く風がなくて、やっと風が吹いてきたっていう感じですね。太陽が高くなって、いつもの風ですね。もう昨日は本当スコールに苦しめられましたね、今朝まで。本当はね、今日赤道通過どうかな、できるかな。もうちょっと風がね強くなればできるかもしれないんですが、ギリギリってとこですね。はい。こういうね風がなくて辛い時もすごくいいことがありました。大体いいこと探すんですけどね。見てください。髪の毛サラサラです。はい。なかなかねスコール合わなかったんですが、行きの赤道ぶりにだからちょうど地球一周ぶりですね。帰りの赤道で昨日はシャワーをね、スコールのシャワー浴びて、髪の毛がサラサラで体もね真水で拭くことができました。それはとてもいいことですね。はい、ということで、赤道までもうちょっと頑張ります。チャオ。
Ce soir, c'est pasta. Je vais prendre des pâtes avec pesto rosso et un peu de copa et de parmesan. Et je vais aller manger dehors parce que c'est magnifique le ciel.
On the tracker, we can see exactly why Boris Herman and Sam Davis are hanging back from rounding Cape Finisterre into the Bay of Biscay. We can see just above them the winds 45 to 50 knots, those purples, which are the strongest winds that you can actually see on the tracker. If we go to the wave state as well, this is where it really becomes clear. We can see off Cape Finisterre waves of 8 metres. Move forward 24 hours. These are 9 metres off Finisterre and through the Bay of Biscay up to 10 metres. And these are conditions you do not want to be out in any boat. For the group from 14th onwards, including Romain Attanasio, who we're going to take a look at the PredictWind routing options for in a little bit, they are in a confused zone between those North Atlantic storms and the trade winds to the south. And we can see that Conrad Coleman has actually made quite a bit of progress on the fleet in front of him as they are in those light winds. We can see Isabelle Joschke, Giancarlo Pedote and Benjamin Ferret just ahead of him, and so he has got the chance to make up some serious ground. The tracker's showing him in 19th place. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. It's more because he's got that eastern course compared to the group in front of him, so he's closer to Les Sables d'Olonne as the crow flies. But if the wind fills in from the east, he could actually make some big gains. Around the equator, we can see the group from 24th onwards, led by Kojiro Shiraishi, have now moved into the northern hemisphere. They're still in the doldrums at the moment, but those northeasterly trades will be hitting them soon, so they'll continue to make progress towards the finish. And in the South Atlantic, we can see in 29th place Antoine Cornic, followed by Oliver Heer in 30th, then Jinkun Zhu, who we saw make that epic mast climb yesterday. Then we have Manuel Cousin, Fabrice Amadeo, and at the rear, Dennis van Weenberg. The leaderboard at 0600 hours UTC shows us just how busy a weekend it was. On Friday, we had Jeremy Bayou, Paul Milha, and also Nico Lundven finishing. On Saturday, Thomas Rouillon, Justine Metreau, and then Sam Goodchild. Sunday we saw Benjamin Dutreux finishing in the afternoon, and just this morning Clarisse Crémer finishing at 03:36:28 UTC. We're going to have a wait now because Boris Herman and Sam Davis are going to wait out for that storm. They've got 741 and 852 nautical miles respectively, but will be going slowly. They do not want to enter the Bay of Biscay at the moment. And then we've got nearly 2,000 miles until the pack led by Romain Attanasio reach Les Sables d'Olonne. The PredictWind routing option for Romain Attanasio in 14th place, compiled by sailworld.com's New Zealand editor Richard Gladwell, show most of the routes going to the northwest of the Azores exclusion zone, and it is using those low pressure systems which continue to barrel across the Atlantic to reach Les Sables d'Olonne. This uses a far more northern option than is been seen by the last few finishers.
So Sam, how does it feel to be back on land? How was your first night on shore?
Yeah, it's been a little bit non-stop since I finished because we were quite late with the tide and there was quite big wind and seas out on the finish line. So, and the 24 hours before the finish were quite intense conditions. Well, actually, the week before the finish was quite intense. So yeah, it hasn't really stopped. I feel like not that long ago I was on my own doing the Vendée Globe, and all of a sudden it's just kind of reconverted to a land life in a fast forward mode. So yeah, it's difficult. I had a good night's sleep and slowly but surely getting back to kind of normal. But yeah, it's been pretty fast forward 24 hours.
Did you sleep all the way through the night?
I had a couple of drinks at the early part of the night.
Oh, that helps.
And then from the moment I went to bed, there was no waking up. I rolled over once or twice to remind myself I didn't have to get up, but there was no issue of getting back to sleep.
But overall, though, result to be proud of, result to be satisfied with.
Yeah, I mean the objectives is filled. I came here to finish the Vendée Globe and enjoy it while I did it, and that's done. So I'm happy with that. There's a little bit of frustration coming so close to a top 5 finished and not managing it. But in a whole, the the aims of the Vendée Globe and the objectives of the Vendée Globe were very much filled. Yeah.
The slightly older generation boat, were there phases where you felt at a particular disadvantage, and how do you deal with them mentally and physically?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my boat's known for being fast in flat water and struggles in the Southern Ocean. And it was the reference boat in the last edition, or one of the reference boats. And all the new boats have improved how they go in big conditions and big sea states. And so yeah, I mean, if you look at how my race turned out, that kind of conforms with that theory, and that I had a very good going down the Atlantic and the Southern Ocean. I only lost places for 6 weeks, and then managed to gain a few places back on the way up the Atlantic until my mainsail broke. So yeah, it's not a boat that's easy, but I knew what I was kind of letting myself in for, and you try and make the best with what you've got.
Was your overall strategy, was that in any way influenced by losing your mast in the New York Monday?
No, not really. I mean, I lost the mast, but it's not really a lot I could have done about it. It's not a lot you could have sailed differently. There's a lot of different alarms on the boat, a lot of different systems, and you try and check on them as much as you can, and make sure you're not taking any unnecessary risks. But apart from doing that, there's not a lot you can do to sail differently and increase your chances of finishing, if you like.
Outwardly, you didn't seem to have any particular downtimes. Is that a true reflection, or?
I mean, honestly, the first 10 weeks of the race were great. I didn't have any. I was enjoying it even more than I thought I was going to. And yeah, there's times that are difficult, but I always kind of managed to relativize as to where I was, what I was doing, why I was doing it, and it was fine. And then the last week, I think a combination of factors. The conditions were very unstable, very unpredictable in terms of forecasts. They were kind of rapidly changing forecasts. My mainsail breaking, losing a bunch of places, and also just being able to see the end of the Vendée Globe was actually quite difficult mentally. When before that it was, oh, it's going to finish next year, or don't think about it. And then all of a sudden it was always going to finish next week, and maybe it's Wednesday or maybe it's Thursday, and suddenly it kind of puts a little bit of time reference to it, which adds a bunch of stress. And so yeah, the last week was probably the most difficult part.
Talk to us about the losing the mainsail, or having the problem with the mainsail. What happened exactly, and did you think the race was over then at that point, or what went through your head immediately?
I mean, it's frustrating. It's obviously, what went through my head immediately is the Vendée Globe's changed. I was never really thought I was going to have to drop out, because you'll get the boat to finish line one way or another. I wasn't sure how or when, or whether I was going to be Robinson Crusoe eating dried fish for the next 3 weeks, but I was going to make it to the finish line, that was for sure. And then when I started dropping the main and started seeing what was broken, I kind of started thinking, oh, there's a repair that's possible here, which I could make a jury rig and be able to get home a bit quicker. And so yeah, I mean, the first thought was, yeah, it's a shame. I'm in 5th place. I'm breathing down the neck of 4th place, and not far from the finish. And now I've got no mainsail. It's going to be a damage limitation and a bit more of an adventure to the finish. So yeah, change of scenario, but never give up.
And the actual process, then, you were in touch with your shore team and with North Sails?
Yeah, so I pretty much started within an hour of it breaking, repairing it, and chatting to the shore team as to how he would repair it. And yeah, so we took the 2 bits of the sail, we glued them together to make one, and then that's nowhere near strong enough, so there was putting big patches on the sail, which were 3.5 meters long and about a meter high, so quite big. We did it in sections because it was quite big. And the biggest difficult part was the sea state, actually. I had waves breaking on the deck from behind the boat and surfing down waves and nose diving into the back of waves. So yeah, trying to stick patches on in wet conditions with waves was pretty complicated. And yeah, it took me probably 36 hours in the period when I slept probably 3 hours combined. So I was pretty shocked by the end of it, but also very happy to get the mainsail back up and get going again.
In terms of the race, saving your J0 was a particular moment, particular win.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember I was in bed and I heard it break, and there's a massive whiz as the halyard flies from the top of the mast, and you wake up and the sail's in the water wrapped around the foil, and my initial instinct was, okay, that sail's gone, I'm going to have to get rid of it. And then it started going underneath the boat, and then I was like, hang on a minute, it'd be crazy not to even try getting it back on board. And actually it went a lot better than I imagined it going, and I guess it's when you're on your own in the middle of nowhere and you've got no choice but to find a solution, but you end up by finding one because there's no backup. You can't phone a friend, you can't go into a port and find a different solution. You just got to figure it out. So yeah, managed to get it back up, and actually, apart from the piece that broke that dropped the sail in the water, I had no extra damage. So that was great.
Did you find the loneliness or being solo, was that a particular challenge? And did you have a routine for staying in touch with the family?
It's something I was worried about before the start, being on my own for 2.5 months and finding that difficult. And actually, it's something I didn't struggle with at all. There is some bits which are more difficult, or which are easier, if you like, sorry, with communication with land and being able to send photos and videos and voice messages with the family. But it's still not the same as human contact. So no, it was a pleasant surprise, and yeah, managed to keep in touch with the family a bit. It's probably more difficult for the family on land than it was for me, because I've just disappeared and life continues for them. But yeah, happy to be back and find a bit of normal again.
And leading the race on 24 different rankings, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely something I'm proud of is the going down the Atlantic when I was leading the race for quite a bit of time, and I managed to hold on to it until we got into those fast conditions in the South Atlantic. But yeah, no, it was a good start to the race, and hopefully I can come back and hold it for a few more rankings next time.
You made your own routing strategy choices in 2 particular phases, which really played out for you. Was there more risk at that point, or were you looking at what others were doing?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, part of it is timing and risk. And the one off Brazil, for example, when I went inside at Cabo Frio, it was really low risk for me because the boats ahead of me were offshore, the boats behind me were following me. So I basically had nothing to lose. If it worked, then I was going to gain places, and if it lost, then I was just going to be where I started. And then going down the Atlantic, I guess that's the other one. I didn't really overthink it, to be honest. It was so early in the race. There's 40 boats. I wasn't hoping to be leading. I was just do your own thing, and it played out as planned. So yeah, it's reassuring.
You appeared to relax more and more as the race went on. Is that a fair reflection, or?
I feel like I was fairly relaxed to begin with, to be honest. I didn't feel like I relaxed too much until the last week. I was fairly comfortable, and actually the hardest bit of the race, and progressively so, was from Cape Horn onwards, which I kind of told myself before, and everyone tells herself, be careful. Cape Horn feels like the finish, and then you realise you've got 3 or 4 weeks left of sailing to go, so be careful. And I kind of managed to, the first week of the South Atlantic, I managed to keep going through that, and then the closer you got to the finish, the harder it got, and the worse the conditions got close to the finish. It didn't help things.
Everyone wants to see you back in 2028. Obviously, that's the question is, what do you need to do to challenge the likes of Charlie and Johan? Do you feel there's a gap there, or some of that was weather in terms of performance of the boat and yourself?
I mean, definitely some of that's weather. Putting exactly what the difference was is hard to say. Like, there's so many ways it could these things can pan out, but I mean, what you can control is arriving on the start line in a condition, able to win the race. And we've seen with Thomas Rion, for example, it's not straightforward as just doing that. But in terms of controlling the controllables, you can do that. And I'm confident in, if I could get a faster boat in those conditions, that I could give those guys a run for the money. And that's what I'd like to do.
What would you like to see in terms of a boat design, having learned from this race? Would you prefer an all-rounder or a boat optimized for specific conditions?
I mean, what's really difficult is what Vendée Globe do you aim for? Because I mean, Charlie and Johan have both said they never really saw much more than 35 knots, and they only saw that once or twice, and had a fairly nice race around the world. So you could say the best boat for that is what Charlie's got, which is a rocket ship, especially in flat waters and low sea states. But if you imagine a Vendée Globe in 2020, maybe you prefer Johan's boat, which is a little bit more of an
so
off-road.
This was a fairly atypical race, or for them it was atypical.
If you look at the history of the Vendée Globe, it's atypical. I mean, but part of that is boat design as well, because the boats are now going faster and faster, so you don't get run over by the systems quite so quickly. So yeah, it's something it definitely needs to be looking into, but I'm not sure it's as straightforward as we all need to have a massive boat now for the next Vendée Globe.
And what did you learn about yourself that you didn't already know, and has the race changed you as a person? Or do you not know yet?
I don't know yet. It's a bit too early to say that, and I think you need to ask someone who my wife maybe, as opposed to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just things I've learned for sure, and spending 2.5 months by yourself and managing that and managing the boat, you learn a lot of things. So yeah, it's great.
I mean, it's a 20-year dream for you. What was it like waking up this morning knowing that you'd done it?
I really don't feel like
You
I've
don't feel like it?
landed yet. I'm hoping it'll hit me at some stage, but it's yeah, it hasn't really hit me just yet.
And the king and queen played a significant role. I mean, it was a bit of fun, but it also gives you a little release valve, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I like to put a little bit of humor and a little bit of lightness into the whole atmosphere, because if not, it just kind of get overwhelming and a bit heavy. So yeah, the king and queen on board was nice to have a little bit of a light moment and remember we're just sailing boats and it's a race. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't go to plan.
And they're going home with you, or what's the future for the king and queen?
So the queen has been on the boat for a couple of years now, and the king joined her not too long ago. So it's a good question. I don't know yet. They're on the boat for now.
Good, well done. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching today. We'll continue to bring you the latest news from the Vendée Globe and many other events from the sailing world. Please do subscribe to our channel using the button down here, and also take a look at sailworld.com and yachtsandyachting.com, where we bring you so much more from the world of sailing.